All right. So we've seen, the influence of the Vedic mathematic principles in education. So let's move on to the next application of Vedic principles as far as mathematics is concerned and the technology, right? So the ancient calculation methods which are used in modern computing, right? Best way to start is looking at another Bhagavatam quote, Canto 3, chapter 11, verse 3. Uh, Atomic time is measured according to its covering a particular atomic space. That time which covers the unmanifest aggregate of atoms is called the great time. So this reveals an ancient understanding of computational efficiency, performing complex calculations through simple systematic steps rather than brute force methods, right? Those of you who have studied anything to do with the modern computing can recognize us learning this. The ancients understood that the most elegant solution often requires the fewest computation steps, right? Let's look at another sutra. Again, we'll talk more about this, later too, right? Nikhilam Navastretanam Dashate, right? Again, it basically, English translation is all from 9 and last from 10, right? So an example of subtracting uh, 357 from 1000, right? So in traditional methods, you do with this whole thing called trace through borrowing, right? So it requires borrowing digits, multiple steps, prone to errors. The Vedic method, which is point and result, right? So, and in this case, it is um, uh, straight into the result in 643, like instant. Again, we'll discuss about this is one of those 14 sutras, so we'll discuss that later in detail. The Vedic approach, recognizes patterns that make complex operations, simple. So look at this binary like calculations. Notice how this resembles the the binary operations, which all of us are familiar, with if you have to do anything with computer science or electronics or any of the engineering concepts, right? So ancient texts described base two principles for astronomical computations. Again, thousands of years before modern computers, where the foundation of modern computers is the binary system of zeros and ones. So let's look at now some of the modern um, algorithm applications, right? Um, Google's search optimization engine incorporates Vedic inspired optimization principles. Parallel processing like Vedic sutras that break complex problems into simple simultaneous operations. Pattern recognition using principles similar to vertically and crosswise. Efficiency optimization that minimizes computational steps, right? Now let's look at the quantum algorithm development, right? So binary concepts from ancient texts now inspire quantum computing development. We talked in one of the previous sections also. Pattern recognition using principles, and then let's look at the most recent cryptocurrency mining, right? So efficient calculations reduce energy consumption by 30% when applied to global cryptocurrency networks. This represents massive environmental and economic benefits. Um, Now, if you look at some of these modern programmers are rediscovering these principles. So you look at this code here, like some of the modern implementations of the Vedic multiplication algorithm. So there is a function which it also is being used. So Vedic multiply A and B, right? So again, this. What does this provides from key learnings? The key principles are what? Minimize computational steps, right? Um, Use recursive mathematical processes, and then apply pattern-based optimizations, right? So again, these are coming from the wisdom from the ancient text, which are brought into from a technology perspective into the modern algorithms, which are used across different areas, like we just saw. So what does this do? It basically 30% energy reduction, as we saw in the mining operations, crypto mining, 50% faster processing in key algorithms using functions like we saw, which we just talked. And then again, 5,000 years ahead, ancient innovation still leading modern development. Okay. These efficiency improvements aren't just theoretical, they translate to millions of dollars in savings and significant environment benefits when applied at scale. So moving on to now another area within technology. So we talked about the computing side of it. Now let's talk about the AI focus on pattern recognition. Which is basically consciousness networks and also machine learning. Again, like everything we do, let's look at one of the verse in Bhagavatam from Canto 2, chapter 10, verse 8. The universal form of the Lord is the complete cosmic manifestation of all individual living entities, and it includes all the senses, elements, mind, intelligence, and ego. So, this describes consciousness as a network where individual awareness connects to universal intelligence, right? I'll repeat that again. This describes consciousness as a network where individual awareness connects to universal intelligence, something we learn in AI machine learning. Exactly how the modern AI, guess what? Neural networks function, right? That's the foundation, neural networks for AI. Again, just also pointing to one of the Upanishads, Isha Upanishad, verse 1. Everything in this universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, right? So this reveals the principle of intelligent source allocation, right? Intelligent resource allocation that modern AI systems use. Okay. So you look at this neural network, connections here, right? How your mind and how it's connected to the universe, and then right. So ancient Vedic texts describe consciousness as a network where individual awareness connects to universal intelligence. Um, So look at this neural network here, and it's kind of a visualization perspective, right? So each node here represent a processing unit, and the connections, show how information, flows through the network. So notice how simple units combine to create complex intelligence. Patterns emerge from the interaction of many simple elements. The network's intelligence is greater than the sum of the parts, right? So if you take a pause there, you can see how this mirrors the Vedic understanding that individual consciousness connects to universal consciousness through an infinite network of relationship. Okay. Let's start looking at some modern AI applications, which connects to what we have discussed here, like neural network parallels. So today's AI systems, use these consciousness network principles in these different areas, right? So you see the search algorithms where pattern matching using ancient classification principles, image recognition, visual pattern recognition following natural principles, natural language, text processing using systematic understanding methods, predictive analytics, behavior pattern recognizing using cyclical principles. Um, so now let's look at the ancient classification system, which we had also talked briefly about. So first one is what? 64 arts, which is a comprehensive knowledge categorization system. Various sciences like systematic knowledge organization, pattern recognition, which is the human behavior prediction using cyclical understanding. And then if you look at kind of a parallel from the modern validation of that, it's the neural network, mirrors Vedic consciousness understanding, machine learning, ancient classification methods, and pattern recognition, cyclical understanding principles, right? So let's look at the key concepts which we have seen, right? So interconnected consciousness, which basically says everything is connected, right? Which is also the fundamentals of neural network and our current AI systems. Universal intelligent network, so individual nodes, um, assessing collective wisdom, right? So that's the whole learning ability in AI systems. And pattern-based learning, right? Recognizing underlying structure, something which you learn in NLPs, right? A natural language processing. The remarkable truth is that ancient consciousness network principles often outperform purely mechanical AI approaches because they work with the fundamental patterns of intelligence rather than against them.